Hey guys, men's dating coach here, Harry Wilmington, founder of introvertdatingsuccess.com. And on today's show, I thought we'd go over a example of a online dating profile that could use a little bit of a touch up. So it's a guy that he decided to change his profile and put up a new self summary. And I want to go over 5 of the major mistakes that he made in his profile and kind of what to look for when putting it together so that way it's more effective. If you're watching this on YouTube, hit that subscribe button and the bell icon to be notified of when I post up new daily videos. Also, go to the website to check out my free video training, How to Get Attractive, Feminine, Emotionally Stable Women Dying to Respond to Your First Messages on Dating Apps Without Using Sleazy Pickup Lines, which will give you key secrets to sparking attraction and conversations with women online the smart way. Let's get into it. All right, guys, so I'm going to read you this guy's message on Reddit and go through his profile, and then I'm going to go back through it and kind of point out to you guys some instances whereby the things that he listed aren't making this the most effective profile in terms of turning on women. I'm going to talk about why that is and what he could do to improve it, all right? So let's go ahead and get into this. So this one's called, What Do You Think of This New Way of Writing a Profile? He says, I guess I got tired of the basic way I used to write my profile with the usual information, favorite TV shows, my current activities, etc. So I decided to base it more on values in order to make it seem much more interesting and actually give a more accurate impression of what I am about. What would you think if you read a profile like this? So let's go into the guy's profile. It says, this is his self-summary. He says, I like dedicating time to making YouTube and Twitter content in English, Spanish, French, because I aim to cultivate an interest in soccer history to as wide an audience as I can. I like women who are actively involved in nerdy pursuits. I choose to drive for days to a sci-fi convention over camping every time. I am a big introvert. I'm fascinated with topics like how the world is represented by our media and how a minority of people have somehow managed to maintain influence and privilege for generations. I am very comfortable with the thought of aging. I love adulthood with its perks, responsibilities, and the ability to configure my life the way I want. And then he says, what I'm doing with my life, school teacher until COVID hit. Until COVID hit, organizing a men's soccer team, plus getting a sports journalism degree in the near future. All right, so before I go into this guy's profile and kind of critique it, I do want to stress that there's nothing overarchingly bad in terms of what he's saying. Like, he's not coming across as like some kind of misogynist. He's not coming across as a guy that abuses women or anything like that. Like, the things that he's mentioning that he likes to do are perfectly fine to do in his everyday life. That said, this is not a profile that's really going to draw women in and necessarily want to converse with him or even be attracted to him, okay? And it's not because the things that he lists are things that women aren't interested in, because, you know, some women might be nerdy, some women might like sci-fi. That's not the issue. But you got to understand that what you're really trying to do in your bio is elicit some kind of emotional response from a woman that's going to drive her to feel something for you and want to reach out to you. And he has none of that in this profile, okay? So first I'll go through it again and just kind of mention the things that he mentioned and why they're not effective. Then I'm going to go through like the 5 major mistakes, okay? So first off, he says, I like dedicating time to making YouTube and Twitter content in English, Spanish, French, because I aim to cultivate. I'm already bored halfway through the sentence. For one, it's a very long, drawn-out sentence. You want to keep your sentences shorter because you want to make sure that it's almost like you want to do bullet points. Like, you want to get your point across about who you are, but in not such a wordy type of way, okay? But the stuff he's mentioning, like, a woman looking at this is going to have no idea what this means. Like, he does YouTube and Twitter content. Does he get paid for the content? Is this his job? Is this just a hobby? It's nothing that's indicating like what this actually is beyond just he likes to do it, okay? And if you're going to mention, like, I don't think you should necessarily have to mention like the kind of job you do per se on a profile, but if you're going to mention stuff that even sounds like it could be a job, you want to specify that, like, my self-summary, I work as a YouTube and Twitter content creator. That at least indicates to women that you have a job of some kind. If that's not a job you have or it's a hobby, then you need to reword that in a way that really gives it off more, okay? But again, the way he says it, it's all very just like academic sounding. That's actually, I'm just kind of mixing the mistakes with the profile as I go along. So that's a major mistake. Number one is that this sounds too academic. And women might want to hear about you, but on a profile, it should be able to sound more fun and more vibrant and not so academic sounding. Like, it sounds very professional, and you got to be mindful of the impression that you're giving off to women when you say things in text. So in this instance, I get off the indication of somebody that might be like a snooty professor type with a tie and a jacket on. That's not really an attractive image that a woman's going to have in her head when she's thinking about the guy that's going to sweep her off her feet. Continuing on, he says, I like women who are actively involved in nerdy pursuits. I choose to drive for days to a sci-fi convention over camping every time. So understand, when you in your profile are specifying certain types of women, you might be canceling out an entire population of women that would actually go for you if you weren't trying to be so specific. And here's another thing too. You are never going to be fully aware of how a woman classifies herself. So for example, there might be a woman that sees this that likes sci-fi stuff, but she might not feel that that's nerdy. Therefore, him saying, I like a woman who's actively involving nerdy pursuits, well, if she doesn't consider herself nerdy, she might not consider him, even though they might have a whole lot of interest in common, just she might not consider them nerdy. So really don't be so specific. If you're trying to get a wide reach of women, then it's in your best interest to not be narrowing it down so much. And I know some of you guys out there are like, well, what if I want a specific woman that does like X, Y, and Z? I found in my travels that there have been times where I've wanted what I thought were specific things, and the woman that I end up going out with might have that one specific thing I was asking for. But then there's these other things that I realized, oh, I wish she had these other things too. Meanwhile, I've dated girls that like, okay, this one specific thing wasn't there, but they were like these whole other things that I actually needed that I hadn't even considered. So if you're trying to date more, understanding dating does not equal a marriage. You can say, you know what, this might not be my normal kind, but I'll give it a shot because who knows if this could be the right person for me if I give it a chance, and then they end up being the right person for you. Like, you don't know that. So don't try to be so specific on these things about a specific kind of girl, because you don't like when they do it to us. Like, if you're a guy that's like 5'7" and the girl's like, oh, I only date specifically 5'8" men, you're gonna feel some kind of way about that. And that is a stupid parameter that women have that they need to get rid of, just like there's some things that you're probably being specific about that you also need to get rid of, okay? To continue on, he says, I am a big introvert. This is a very big mistake, okay? Especially for you guys that are watching this channel, I'm guessing some of you are probably introverted men. And you're thinking, well, I don't want to freak a girl out if I get on a date and she finds out then that I'm an introvert, so I need to say it early on, so that way women that come to my page won't be shocked because they're not going to want to date an introvert. And dude, this is an example of something that is going to be better to explain in conversation than it's going to be on a website. Because, for example, let's take me, okay? I'm very much an introvert. However, when people first meet me, I'm very talkative. I know how to express myself. I know how to be in the moment in the conversation. And I've had a lot of women tell me, when I tell them I'm an introvert, they're like, oh, you're an introvert? Like, I had no idea. So when people see the word introvert, they're already going to have a preconceived notion of what that is. And to be fair, that's their fault, because they probably, had experience with other introverts and it wasn't the best, or they dated introverted guys who just always wanted his alone time, okay? And so this is why it's imperative to go from online dating to a date as soon as possible. And in my program, Smart Digital Dating, which you can find at smartdigitaldating.com/enroll, I teach you guys about this, about how, the way you're going to come across in the profile and then what you're going to say on a date. You want to still be the same on a date, but you're going to be adding details. So don't think you got to add all these details about yourself to your profile. Some of these details are going to be better for you to say in person. And that's also another mistake that I have here, is that many of these extra details that you're putting in your profile need to be saved for the actual date, so you have a chance to give more context. So in the case of being an introvert, I'll go on a date. In the first 30 minutes, we're talking, having a good time, whatever. At some point in the conversation, I'll segue in that, oh, I'm an introvert. Girls usually shocked. Oh, you're an introvert? I can't tell. And I'll say, well, yeah, I'm really good. And when I'm comfortable with somebody, we've had conversations online, so I'm really good because I already kind of got to talk to you, so I feel like I know you a little bit. But yeah, there's still days where I need my alone time, or I get really drained at parties very easily, et cetera, et cetera. But as you can see, we're able to still have conversations. So now in person, I'm able to remove that fear that she possibly has of me being extra quiet or not being talkative, because I've talked to her for 30 minutes now and it went effortlessly. So now she's able to say, okay, well, being an introvert doesn't mean he's not going to be an active guy or guy that's able to talk, because clearly this guy knows how to talk. He doesn't seem very shy. And that's another miscommunication, is that a lot of women especially, equate shy guys with introverted guys. And you can have a guy that's an extrovert and be shy, okay? So we know that, but you have to show her that on a date. So don't ever put in your profile that you're an introvert. You're going to lose more women than not simply because you're putting this in your profile and you don't need it, okay? He says, I'm fascinated with topics like how the world is represented by our media and how a minority, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so this whole part about what he's fascinated by with topics, again, this is stuff that you talk about on the date, but it does not belong in your bio. Because again, your bio is supposed to be designed to be able to trigger a response. And that's another mistake I put here is that there's no triggers in this thing to inspire a woman to write to him or to communicate with him. Like everything he's saying is basically like, I do this, I'm like that, I want a girl like this, but he's not putting in any kind of questions to her or any kind of like survey things or mentioning any kind of interest that would be like, oh, like this is why you want to really be generic in terms of your interest on these things. Like, saying stuff like, oh, I enjoy bowling, I enjoy walking, this and that. You want to put things that are kind of generic out there because it will match you well with a wide variety of women because women are looking for reasons to hit you up. Okay. So when you say stuff like, oh, I like going bowling, I like walking, I like going to the beach, like whatever, then they can write to you and say, oh, I like going to the beach too. But if you say some stuff like, I'm fascinated with topics like how the world is represented, blah, 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 no woman's going to write you and say, I'm also fascinated by how the world is represented by our media and how minority, blah, 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 blah. It's too long and too big of an idea and scope for a dating app. That's something where, especially if he's an introvert, he's trying to put on his bio something that would be a deep conversation starter. But women on dating apps, for the most part, are just trying to get comfortable enough with you to get the date, to agree to a date with you in person, okay? So these kind of big ideas, you save these kind of conversations for a date when you're in person and you can talk them out because you're not trying to have a long, drawn out texting conversation with long texting paragraphs. Like that's not something that women are very interested in. They're interested in, matching with a guy, having a cute little conversation, having him ask her out on a date, and then have a date where they have a bigger conversation. Okay. So then this thing about I'm very comfortable with the thought of aging. Like according to this, he's 34. So he's 34 talking about he's comfortable with aging in adulthood. But that sounds like stuff that like a very immature man would say. And it's also an idea that doesn't need to be said to a woman. Like you're comfortable with the thought of aging. She wasn't thinking in her head that you weren't cool with the thought of aging. She wasn't thinking about aging at all until you brought it up. Then she's gonna look at your age like, oh, he's 34. He's starting to age a little bit. Like you don't need to mention some of these things. So you have to be mindful of the things you put on your profile. If it's too academic sounding, if it's too professional sounding, then it sounds less like a dating bio and more like a job resume. And you're trying to invoke fun. You're trying to invoke that you're a guy that knows how to, get the most out of his life and knows how to have a good time. And none of this stuff is really saying that. Like he mentions like, oh, he likes to go to sci-fi convention. I guess that could be a good time, but he's not really giving himself off as the kind of guy that is like really fun. He's just not coming across as a fun guy. He's coming across as a guy that seems like he's a little bit stuck up. He's a little bit too professional sounding. And women want to be able to read on your profile that they're going to be able to have some fun with you. They're going to be able to have a dynamic time. They're going to be able to do things that they wouldn't normally do. And so for this guy, I'd say, and I wrote him back, I said, basically it sounds too businessy and it sounds too wordy in parts. And you're ultimately not putting anything in the bio that's going to make a woman want to reach out to you. Again, women are emotional beings. We're all emotional, to be fair, because I don't want to just call out the ladies on that stuff. But in terms of when you go to a dating profile, you can't, as men, we typically look at very analytical stuff, but they're not looking for that. So you have to know what they're looking for and then know what things are going to get you the right responses. And that's why in my program, Smart Digital Dating, I have a whole section that's devoted to things like biohacks, what things to put in your bio that's going to trigger a positive response from her, what things you can put in there that's going to make her want to write to you first. These things make online dating a lot easier versus this guy that's going to make it hard for himself. He's got to like put up another profile of some kind and just keep working it. And you could do that. You could take the slow route and just like keep trying profile different things until you find something that works. But I've been doing this for a while now, and I just have, things I put in the profile time and time again that consistently work to get me results. And so you need to be mindful of that. But ultimately, guy, at the very least, whether you get my program or not, or you want to go check it out, you can check it out you can see everything that the program has to offer at smartdigitaldating.com/enroll. But even if you don't do that, if nothing else, try to sound less academic and less businessy in your profile, sound more fun. Make sure to add certain triggers in there that's going to make women respond to you and write you back first, okay? And above all else, do not mention the whole I'm an introvert thing. There's nothing wrong with being an introvert, but that's a conversation that you need to have in person so you can that way she knows from you what being an introvert means to you and how you run your introvert life and if it gels with hers. And being an introvert that's had a successful dating life so far, I would say that women will in fact date introverts, but you got to talk to them about it. You can't just put it up on a profile, because I'm telling you guys, if you put that on your profile, it's probably one of the major reasons that women are swiping left on you or not writing you, because they have an idea of what that is. And they need to meet you first so they can have a new idea of what that is, okay? But yeah, guy, hopefully this has helped you. Hopefully you now understand a little bit more about what should and should not go into a profile. And I hope that I'm able to help you in that way, whether it's just from this particular show or from my program itself, okay? But definitely check out the program at smartdigitaldating.com/enroll today. Thanks for watching this episode of the Introvert Dating Success Show. If you found the info in this episode to be helpful, please show your support by clicking on the Tip Jar tab, the link of which can be found at the website and in the description below. While there, you can also download a free copy of my ebook, Texting Like a Boss, where you'll learn the kinds of texts that really attract women. Be sure to like, share, subscribe, and leave a comment on this episode, and catch new episodes 7 days a week right here on YouTube or wherever podcasts can be found. In the meantime, be sure to check out some other episodes so that you too can learn to date as your introverted self while still getting your precious alone time. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time. Peace.